"You're being dramatic again," she hissed. But it wasn't me on the balcony, raising her voice with one hand on her hip and a wine glass in the other. No, it was her. Her, spinning some theatrical monologue in front of our friends. Well, mostly her friends. About how tired she was of being misunderstood, how exhausting it was to love someone who never grew up. I just stood there. Not because I didn't have anything to say. I had everything to say. But if I opened my mouth, I'd either cry or beg, and both options would have made me look even smaller than I already felt in that moment. There was no warning. No argument earlier that day. One minute we were lighting candles and slicing brie. The next she was on her 5th glass of Pinot, explaining my flaws to a room full of strangers like I was a podcast episode she couldn't wait to review. And when she turned to me, in the middle of her rant, I knew it was coming. "You always want me to choose. You or the truth. So fine." She smiled like it was funny. "Stay or leave, right now. Your choice." I could hear forks pause on plates. Someone coughed. Our neighbor actually shushed her date. And she just stood there, daring me to speak. So I didn't. I stared at her for exactly 3 seconds. Then I set my napkin down, pushed my chair back, and walked out the front door. She didn't follow. Not right away, anyway. But the messages started pouring in just after midnight. And what I found when I finally checked them, yeah, that was just the beginning of the wreckage. I didn't check my phone until hours later. I'd been walking for blocks with no direction, just trying to keep my legs moving so my brain wouldn't catch up. I remember I ended up at a closed gas station, sitting on the curb like a kid who missed his ride. I finally took out my phone, half hoping there'd be nothing at all. Maybe just silence. That would have been easier. But no, she had messaged me. Not just her. Them. Her friends. Even her co-worker Claire, who always called me sweet but kind of clueless. It was the group chat. The one they didn't know I still had access to. Yeah, months ago, she had accidentally logged into her group text on my laptop when she was using it for some Zoom thing. I never mentioned it. I was never the type to snoop. But that night, I clicked. I didn't expect to find that. It started right after I walked out. Her message. "He really left. Like, just got up and walked out. Should I be worried?" And then Claire responded. "Honestly, you gave him the chance. He chose. Maybe now you're free to do what you wanted months ago." Another friend wrote, "OMG girl, he actually walked?" And then, like a punch in the stomach, a text from someone saved as JP. I'm guessing that's my cue? Smirking face. I stared at that for maybe 5 minutes straight. JP. Who the hell was JP? I had never heard that name before. Never seen it. But the way she replied, "Patience, handsome. It's only 10 p.m. told me everything I needed to know. My wife didn't just give me an ultimatum at a dinner party. She planned it. She staged the whole thing, complete with a live audience and a secret exit plan. And me? I played my role perfectly. The emotional, awkward husband who just couldn't keep up. I remember actually laughing. Not because it was funny, but because it felt like the only thing left to do. I wanted to call her. To scream. To ask who JP was. But what would that even do? She'd twist it. She always did. She'd say I was invading her privacy or reading things out of context. Except this wasn't vague. This wasn't even subtle. This was betrayal. Documented. Shared. Celebrated. I walked back to our apartment building around 1 a.m., but I didn't go inside. I just stood across the street, in the shadows, like some broken man in a bad movie. Her light was still on. I could see her silhouette. She was dancing. No, swirling in the living room. Alone, or maybe not. Maybe he was already there. And suddenly I felt so stupid. So small. So unwanted in my own story. I turned around. Booked a hotel downtown. Cheap, ugly, but quiet. And I swore I wouldn't contact her. Not until I had a plan. Because if she thought that was the end of the story, she didn't know who she'd just turned into a ghost. The next morning, I didn't wake up so much as I came back to life in pieces. That ugly hotel room smelled like bleach and old desperation, and my back hurt from the spring digging through the mattress. But my mind was sharper than it had been in weeks. Or maybe just angrier. That kind of betrayal, it activates something in you. Something cold. I didn't go to work. Didn't call anyone. I sat at a coffee shop 2 blocks from our building, just watching. Watching who went in. Who came out. I didn't even know what I was looking for until I saw him. Tall. Messy hair. Athletic jacket. Wearing that casual confidence I'll never have. He came out of the lobby looking comfortable. Not lost. Not visiting. And when he passed close to my bench, I heard him hum a song. Not loudly, just happy. No one walks out of an apartment building humming like that unless they woke up next to someone they shouldn't have. I don't know what came over me. I stood up. Followed him. Not far, just to the corner. I watched him pause at the light, check his phone, smile, and text someone. Then, after a moment, he turned his phone sideways and took a selfie. He took a selfie on my street. Like this was some vacation. I felt something break inside. Something that made me cross that street and step into the building I used to call home. The doorman, Jeremy, a college kid who always called me sir, like I was 90, froze when he saw me. He knew, or he knew enough. I didn't say a word. Just walked to the elevator like I still belonged there. Maybe I didn't. The doors opened, and Brenna was standing inside. Alone. She jumped when she saw me. Like I was a ghost. Like she hadn't expected me to come back ever. There was this awful silence. The kind that makes your ears buzz. Then, she did what she always does when cornered. She smiled. A fake, polished, too bright smile. Wow. You look tired. That's what she said. After everything. No apology. No explanation. Just a jab, right between the ribs. I didn't smile back. I asked, quietly, was he worth it? She didn't even pretend not to know who I meant. She looked away. Pressed the elevator button like she thought it would save her. You walked out, Daryl, she said. You made your choice. Don't try to crawl back now just because you regret it. I should have screamed. Should have thrown something. But all I said was, you turned our life into a stage. And you wanted an audience when I broke. She flinched. But not enough. I didn't wait for the elevator. I walked down the stairs, one slow, aching step at a time. Because now I wasn't just hurt. I was planning something. Something she wouldn't see coming. I didn't go back to the hotel. Not yet. I wandered around the city for hours, replaying everything she said or didn't say in that elevator. It wasn't guilt in her voice. It wasn't even regret. It was indifference. And that hit harder than any confession ever could. But the part that kept gnawing at me was the confidence. The way she spoke to me like I was the one who walked out on her. Like I had no right to feel betrayed. That meant one thing. She'd already rewritten the story in her head. She'd already told herself a version where she was the victim. Maybe she even told him that. That's when I realized. I had to find out everything. Not just what she was doing behind my back, but how long it had been going on. I still had a backup key to the apartment. She never remembered to take it off my keychain. I waited until I knew she'd be at work. She never skipped her weekly staff meeting, the one she always called corporate therapy. I walked in like a ghost and shut the door behind me so softly it barely clicked. It felt like breaking into my own life. The smell of her shampoo lingered in the air. One of my jackets was still on the back of the kitchen chair, like I might have come back for it any day. She hadn't thrown it away. She hadn't even touched it. I stood there for a long time, just staring. Then I made myself move. I didn't look for her phone. I already knew that would be wiped clean. No, I went for the laptop. Her old one. The one she said she stopped using. It was tucked under the bed, dusty but not dead. I booted it up. No password change. That's when I knew Brenna had gotten cocky. I opened her downloads folder. Scanned through emails, synced chats, PDF receipts, random stuff. Then I hit her Chrome history. And that's when my hands started shaking. There were hotel bookings. Not just one, not just local. 2 cities. Same name. JP. One of them was for a weekend. I was out of town visiting my mother in the hospital. She told me she stayed in to rest and watch old rom-coms. There were also photos. A folder called Work Trip Slides. She'd labeled it like a presentation. It wasn't slides. It was selfies. Pictures of her in a hotel room. A man's jacket on the chair. 2 toothbrushes. Her in lingerie I'd never seen before. Posing, laughing, happy. One photo even had a reflection in the mirror. And there he was. Him. JP. He was older than I thought. Looked like someone who bragged about his golf swing and private car service. A guy who wore cufflinks just to grab coffee. I didn't cry. Not yet. I think I was too far gone for tears. Instead, I took out my phone and snapped photos of everything. All of it. The receipts. The chats. The folders. The lies. Then I opened her email. Typed out a draft. Subject line. Since you like giving ultimatums. But I didn't send it. Not yet. Because suddenly I realized. I wasn't going to confront her. I was going to let her wonder. Let her spiral. Let her feel the silence she shoved me into. I logged out, closed the laptop, left everything exactly as it was. Except for one thing. I took my jacket with me, and the framed photo of our wedding day from the hallway. That was the last trace of me in that apartment. And I wanted her to notice it was missing. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I laid in that awful hotel bed staring at the ceiling like it could explain any of this to me. I kept asking myself, why wasn't I enough? Was I ever? Or was I just the safe placeholder while she waited for someone with a sharper smile and a shinier life? By morning, I'd memorized every file I'd saved, every little clue, but there was still something missing. I didn't know what their plan was, where this was going. And then I remembered something from weeks ago, something she'd mumbled while pretending to care about my weekend plans. I might have a dinner thing with work next Friday. Late one. You probably won't want to come. It's just boring. Back then, I nodded like a good little husband. But now, I remembered the way she said it. Not dismissive, defensive, like she was laying a trap and hoping I'd fall right into it. So I waited. Friday came fast. I knew better than to text her. I didn't even log into the group chat. I just sat in a different coffee shop, staring across the street at the luxury steakhouse she loved, the one she only ever went to when someone else was paying. It was the kind of place where you needed a reservation and the valet called you sir while judging your shoes. At 7:42 p.m., she arrived. Not alone. It was him. J.P. in a black blazer and that same smug aura I'd seen from a distance. They walked in like they owned the city. Laughing. Touching. No tension. No guilt. If someone had looked at them, they'd think that was the couple. That he was the man who brought her soup when she was sick or held her hair when she cried after her father's funeral. But no, he was just the man she wanted when she thought I was no longer watching. I waited 20 minutes before I made my move. I walked in through the bar entrance. Stayed out of view. Found a corner where I could see them without being seen. She was glowing. Eyes bright. Not once did she check her phone. Not once did she hesitate. I pulled out mine and texted her. Enjoy dinner. Don't forget to tell him what you left behind. She didn't check it right away. But when she did, it was like a light dimmed behind her eyes. She froze. Showed him the screen. He read it, shrugged, and went back to sipping his wine. She tried to smile. Tried to pretend it didn't matter. But then her phone buzzed again. I sent her a picture. One from the folder she forgot to erase. The one with his face in the mirror. The one with my reflection layered faintly in the corner from when I took the screenshot on her laptop. That's when she stood up. Pale. Frozen. She rushed toward the exit, phone clutched like a weapon. I backed out the other way, vanished down the alley, heart pounding so hard I thought I might collapse. But it wasn't fear. It was something else. Power. For the first time in months, I wasn't chasing her. I wasn't begging for answers. I had them. And she had no idea what I was going to do next. She didn't call me. Not that night. Not the next morning. That surprised me. Brenna was many things, but she was never one to sit in silence when control was slipping. I thought maybe she was trying to flip the script again, pretend she was the wounded party, buy herself time to rewrite the narrative. But I underestimated how desperate guilt could feel when it has nowhere left to hide. Because by the third day, she came looking for me. I had checked out of the hotel and moved into a friend's guest house out in Arlington. Curtis and I weren't even that close anymore. But when I told him I needed a place without questions, he tossed me the keys like he'd been waiting years to do something that mattered. No rent, no small talk, just space. Silence. That Monday night, I heard the knock. It was soft at first, then louder. I stayed on the couch, heart thudding, not even breathing. I don't know what I thought would happen. Maybe I hoped she'd break down on the porch and confess everything. Maybe I wanted to hear her cry. But when I peeked through the blinds, I saw something worse. She wasn't crying. She was pacing, angry, nervous, holding her phone and typing furiously, probably searching through every contact in her phone, trying to figure out how I'd vanished so completely. She knocked again, harder, called out my name once. Not sweetly, sharply. And then, finally, she left. I waited 10 more minutes before I looked at my phone. 10 missed calls. 5 texts. I know what you saw. Let's just talk. Don't do anything stupid. You don't understand the full story. You walked out. You don't get to judge. It was just one weekend. It wasn't supposed to go that far. Can we talk like adults? Please? That last one almost got me. The please. I could still hear her voice when I read it. She always knew how to soften her tone just enough to sound human again. But then I remembered the laughter. The way she looked at him. The way she made me the villain in my own story. No apology. No remorse. Just damage control. So I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded those texts to a new email account I created. Because what she didn't know was that I wasn't just sitting in silence. I was building something. A file. A record. A trail. Something that would remind her, if she ever forgot, that I wasn't the quiet fool she'd spent years underestimating. She started this in public, and I was going to end it the same way. For days, I said nothing. I stayed quiet while she spiraled, watching from a distance as she tried to regain control of the chaos she created. She must have reached out to everyone by now. Mutual friends, co-workers, even my sister, who called me just to say, "Whatever you're doing, keep going. She looks like hell." I didn't laugh. I just felt empty. But I wasn't done yet. I waited until the perfect moment. The same way she waited to humiliate me in front of a room full of people. I waited until she had something to lose. Something public, something important. Because if she thought her life was still intact, she hadn't seen what silence can do when it's weaponized. It came the following Saturday. Her company's charity gala. Black tie, corporate donors, socialites, board members. She wasn't just attending. She was giving a speech. Her name was literally on the program. Brenna Whitmore, Outreach Director. Her biggest night of the year. The one she bragged about for months. And I was there. Not on the guest list. But I didn't need to be. I had just enough connection left through an old vendor badge and a black suit she once made fun of for being too boring to wear anywhere special. Turns out it was perfect. I didn't go there to ruin her. Not exactly. I just wanted to see her face when she spotted me. And I made sure she did. Right before her speech, I stood near the back of the room, just within sight. Sipping water, staring like a man who'd been resurrected by truth. She caught my eyes, mid-laugh with a client, and froze. The color drained from her face. Her grip on the champagne glass faltered just slightly. She whispered something to a colleague and started toward me, but the MC called her name. Too late. She had to walk up that stage. She stood behind the mic with her paper in one hand, her voice calm, steady, until her eyes drifted back toward me. She stuttered. Just once. But the silence after that word, it swallowed the room. And I didn't even move. I just stood there and let her choke on her own guilt. Then I turned and walked out before the applause, before the polite laughter, before the facade reset itself. She ran after me into the hallway, heels clacking like warning shots. "Why are you here?" She snapped, eyes wild, breath short. "What do you want from me?" I turned, finally speaking for the first time in a week. "I wanted to see if you could still lie with a straight face." Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. "I know everything," I said quietly. "The hotels. The group chats. Him." She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. "You staged my humiliation," I said. "So I let you perform yours." She whispered, "You don't understand." But I just shook my head. Then I walked away, again, this time knowing she didn't have a comeback rehearsed for that. 2 weeks passed. No more texts. No more calls. Just silence. Not mine, hers. For the first time in years, she finally ran out of things to say. No spin. No manipulation. Just a void where her control used to live. And I was free. Not in the explosive, dramatic way I imagined it would feel. No grand revenge. No public shaming. Just peace. The kind of quiet you don't recognize at first, because you've been living in chaos so long it feels like home. I moved into a small apartment on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. Every piece of furniture, every dish, every painting, I picked them out for me. Not for her approval, not to impress anyone, just for the first time in a long time. I got to make choices without fear of being mocked or minimized. I even started sleeping through the night again. No dreams. No checking the empty side of the bed. No replaying her voice in my head. But of course, peace never lasts untouched. One Sunday afternoon, just as the sun dipped past the balcony, I heard a knock at the door. Slow, hesitant, familiar. I already knew who it was before I looked through the peephole. There she stood. No makeup, hair pulled back, holding a manila envelope in one hand and an expression she couldn't quite hide, somewhere between shame and longing. She didn't speak right away, just looked down at the floor, then up at me like we were strangers again. "I signed everything," she said softly, holding out the envelope. "I won't fight it." I took it, said nothing. She waited a few seconds longer. Then, When I still didn't invite her in, she stepped back. I thought maybe you'd want to talk. Maybe we could have one honest conversation. You never said anything after. I didn't need to, I interrupted. My voice was calm, steady. Nothing like the wreck she last saw walking away from a rooftop party weeks ago. You already said enough for both of us. She looked like she wanted to cry, but didn't. Instead, she asked, "Are you happy now?" That question used to haunt me, because back then, I didn't even know what happiness felt like anymore. But now, I looked her in the eye and said, "I'm not there yet, but I'm finally facing the right direction." She nodded, tried to smile, failed, then turned and walked away. No drama, no last hug, no begging. And I stood there, alone in the doorway, holding the final chapter of a life that used to be mine. I didn't feel sad. I felt light. I went back inside, poured myself a glass of something cheap, and sat out on the balcony as the sky shifted from orange to blue. And that night, for the first time in years, I didn't think about what I lost. I thought about everything I was finally about to gain.